This episode of On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls is brought to you by Will Jewelry and Loan. When you need cash and you need it fast, check out Will Jewelry and Loan. Come on in with your jewelry, firearms, electronics, tools, lawn equipment, dirt bikes, side-by-sides, and even four-wheelers. They will beat any competitor's loan amount, and that's a fact. Will Jewelry and Loan guarantees faster and more cash for your loan than any other company in the area. They have your cash you need fast. Check them out today on their Facebook page or give them a call at 304-768-5101. Stop in and talk with them at 5523 McCorkle Avenue, Southwest, South Charleston, West Virginia. Will Jewelry and Loan, 304-768-5101. All right, guys, welcome to On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls. Tonight we've got special guest Chris Richards with OMM Outfitters World Class Adventures, and he's also the camp manager and the podcast host for the Moose Hunt podcast. So we have him on this evening, and we're just going to be talking a little bit of history behind the business and the podcast that just got started recently, right before ours, actually, in August of last year. So got Dan Hall here with me tonight, co-host. So how you doing, Dan?
I'm doing good, Michael. Finally able to get back with you there. Last week I was rather under the weather, so I wouldn't have been worth nothing. So it's good to get back on here.
Yeah, you missed last week. I know I talked to you there the night of, and I was like, you going to be on with us? And he's like, nah, man, I'm feeling pretty rough.
So, yeah, I was sick.
Yeah, he was not doing too good, so... Well, without further ado, Chris Richards with OMM World Class Adventures. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, guys. Doing great. How are y'all?
Doing really good, man.
Yep, real well. Glad to have you on here, Chris.
No, it's a pleasure to be on here. This is fun to kind of jump on with other people who are kind of sharing the podcasting and discussions of the outdoor industry, and so I really appreciated getting the invite. I've been excited for this conversation. I think we tried to do this a month ago and we had a conflict. And so here we are, we're finally making it happen. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, we had to reschedule once there, and we appreciate you understanding that and being understanding with us. But yeah, it's awesome to get on and talk with other, podcast hosts and things. And, we're trying to, I guess, propel ourselves forward in this podcast boom that's going on right now. And this is kind of like the AM of the older generation, in this time. So tell us, we'll go right into the Moose Hunt podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and how it got started.
Well, it actually got started, frankly, just by conversation within our outfitter. We have about, in any given year, 30 to 40 guides working in our operation in any given season. And it was actually our owner, Nathan Terrio. I kind of had the brainchild behind it, and we were talking, and he said, we have all these stories. We have this history of these hunts and all this stuff. And I think moose hunting particularly is, so many people are so interested in it. It's something you can't do everywhere. There's an allure to it. They're just magnificent animals. And so, those of us who work at OMM, we have a particular passion for moose hunting. And so we decided we were going to sit down and start recording conversations about kind of hearing the history of Nathan and Ken Mayo, one of our other guides, and how they started the company way back in 2003 and got into tips and tactics. And I think it's exciting, particularly the Maine moose hunt is a cultural item here in the state of Maine. And so the response has been really, really exciting as people they look forward to it every year. The Maine moose drawing in this state is, it's as big a holiday, I'd swear, as Thanksgiving or anything else during the year. You count down, you apply for the lottery. Actually, just so you all know, if you're interested in applying, the application is live right now, so you can jump in and do that. And
Eric,
we started doing our recording conversations, sharing moose stories. We have a pretty robust team, so a lot of the initial episodes have been just meeting team members, hearing backgrounds, and it's been a really fun project to launch. So I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I noticed that you had Adam Newell on there. He's one of our pro staffers down here at Nature's Voice Game Calls, and he's been with us for about 5 years, and he guides there in Maine as well. So, and you do a little bit of guiding as well too, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had my guide license now for decade or more, and was always an interest of mine. I was kind of blessed, grew up in a big hunting family, both sides. But my Uncle John was this huge influence in my life. He's sadly no longer with us, but he was the coolest guy in the world to me. And he was a guide. And I remember going up to his camp in northern Maine, and he'd be out there running bear sites, and he'd be guiding moose hunts. And he was very, very well known for his skills in the pursuit of tracking down big 200-pound whitetail deer in northern Maine. That's kind of a cultural thing up here, is deer hunting that way. And so he was one of these kind of local legends. You'd be amazed, some of these hunters in northern Maine that are just unknown, and they want to be that way. And he kind of inspired me to be to be a guide. And so I got that probably 10 years ago, and have kind of done it off and on for a little while through my own kind of relationships, and got hooked up with the team here at OMM a number of years ago. And kind of the rest is history. That things got real serious.
Nice. Yeah. We had Eric Gagnon on not too long ago, talking about his legacy moose hunt with him, his dad and his daughter. And he told us a lot about the draw. He actually sent me, message there, I don't know, whenever your draw started, he said, "Hey, you better get in on it." So I've been looking at it. I just haven't bit the bullet and tried it yet.
It's funny. Eric's a great guy. I actually talked to him some. I guide. It's kind of my side hustle. I actually also work as an admissions professional at the University of Maine. I'm the director of admissions there. And so Eric's daughter actually attends the University of Maine. So I kind of know them a little bit.
Cool.
And,
that's cool.
Yeah. So Maine's a small world, man. As soon as you mentioned, that's one of those states we are up here. When you meet someone they could be across the country. If they say, "Hey, do you know so-and-so from Maine?" You think that should be kind of a cliche joke. But I'll tell you, 90% of the time, you're like, "Actually, yeah, I do."
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's funny that, Eric's been with us now for probably ever since we started. He was one of our first customers, actually. And he worked for, the Bangor airport there. And planes would fly in from Martinsburg, West Virginia, to Maine. And it's the National Guard. And he'd send me pictures of the National Guard planes flying in with the West Virginia Cent logo on it, and Martinsburg, West Virginia, right there on the tail. And I was like, man, that is awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is actually a pretty special thing where so many of the troops on deployment, fly in and out of Bangor. They have a really awesome group of people there that's a number of years known as the troop greeters, and kind of local people who go to welcome these soldiers, back to the country after they've, gone overseas and sacrificed that time and sometimes even more, protecting our rights and our freedom. So that's a really special airport. Actually, I don't know if you've ever flown into Bangor, but if you do, I'd say take a moment to walk through the airport and check out like the troop greeter station and the stories and the photos and stuff. Cause it's a piece of Maine kind of culture that we're particularly proud of up here.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know much about that.
Yeah. If you were to look up, Bangor, Maine troop greeters or something on YouTube, you'd probably find a story about some of the people who do that every year and kind of might wake up at 2 a.m. to get to a plane flying in and the whole deal. It's a special thing. It really is.
Wow. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. That's good on them people to do that. I mean, those troops don't always have people there to greet them and everything, But so talking about guiding in Maine, I don't know if you've done much out west hunting, but what do you think, like, the main differences in guiding in the Maine compared to out west?
So I think one thing about Maine that I would say is particularly challenging, especially in a lot of the area we hunt in the northern part of the state, is how thickly wooded it is. It's very thickly wooded, and frankly, how flat a lot of the territory is, especially in the northern part of the state. The idea of glassing in Maine, there's some areas of the state that can be a worthwhile technique. But I'll be honest, I hunt in a lot of areas where you just don't have the visibility. So very thickly wooded, a lot of commercial timberland, so which creates, rotating forestry practices, fresh cuts, which end up being of primary interest for moose particularly. So we're always monitoring that. Maine also is pretty special in that we have a cultural reality up here of land use access to private land. So in this state, if land isn't visibly posted, you can legally hunt it, even privately owned.
I was going to ask about that because I know, out west has a lot of public land, and I didn't know how you guys got around all that.
Yeah, so we're 90% private land, or it's some crazy number like that. And we have, frankly, it's just a lot of cultural tradition that has stayed over from years and years ago. You could go back in time in Maine to when there were these huge employers like Great Northern Paper Company, these massive paper companies that own thousands upon thousands of acres of land. And there was just the ability to access that. And the ability to access that. And that's stayed in a lot of the state, not everywhere. Some things have changed, don't get me wrong, but particularly the North Maine woods, we still have a lot of kind of free access to roam. And I think part of that lends itself to a unique hunting perspective. I mean, I can tell you, I grew up hunting and still where I love to deer hunt and moose hunt, hunting ruffed grouse, partridge up in northern Maine. I never worry about boundaries ever. I guess the only property line I really am worried about is Canada, so there's a lot of people who enjoy that, not worrying about those types of things. But back to your original question, I think the thickly forested and relatively flat versus high mountainous glassing mountainside to mountainside, we don't have that here. In fact, one of my first commercial clients was from Jackson, Wyoming, and he brought his best friend hunting with him as a sub-permittee from Montana. And I told them that we were going to hunt Monday morning down around the side of this mountain. And so we went in and did this morning hunt, and we called in a young bull and they passed on it, and we were going out, and they asked me, like, so did you change the game plan this morning? I go, what do you mean? They're like, well, you said something about hiking around a base of a mountain. And I said, yeah, that's the mountain. And to them, that was just like a change in elevation.
Yeah. Nothing big, huh?
No doubt. Absolutely.
But yeah, we had some laughs about that. And certainly I'd say that's probably the biggest difference.
That's one of the things I was going to mention was, they call Maine the pine tree state. So that's, it's definitely thick up there. I've not hunted the woods of Maine, but we hunted ducks there on the coastline, and we did go and do some shooting there on a friend of mine's property in Maine, and it was pretty back in the woods. So it is thick.
Yeah, and with that brings unique challenges and difference in hunting. It's funny. You go to a lot of, hunting camps in Maine, and, people hunt a lot, with open sight rifles, because the range of shooting even is just not, that of, necessarily warranting even scopes at all. I, we talk about this all the time, guiding up here is like, what's the longest shot you've ever taken in Maine? And I was like, I think the longest shot I've ever taken at any game animal was like 120 yards and happened to catch a deer on the far side of a beaver bog, just by chance. But
wow,
I've shot, I think about moose I've harvested personally or guided people to, or, I honestly can say probably 90% within 50 yards. And that's just part of, frankly, the topography that kind of shapes and drives that type of hunting and opportunities that you get.
That's the thrill of it there, though. Get them that close to you.
Yeah.
Especially a big moose like that. I mean, geez.
Yeah. That's kind of the romantic experience, right? I mean, there's nothing, and I think one reason why, people come and they go moose hunting, and if, they have that experience of a bull coming in, grunting, raking his antlers, that's kind of what hooked me. The first time I ever really heard that, I was pretty young, hunting with my old man up in northern Maine, and I remember hearing this bull down in this bog, just walking around, snapping trees and grunting and putting on a show. And to me, it sounded like a T-Rex. You know what I mean? It was, I imagine this moose 5,000 pounds and 10 feet tall and the whole deal. The power that they have in the forest, and I think that's why people get really excited and addicted to hunting them. And frankly, it's my passion. Yeah. It's what I like to do. It's what I like to plan for and talk about all year long, just like kind of the rest of the members on our team.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What, as a guide service, what do you recommend an individual to come up there with? What caliber rifle or?
Yeah. So this is such a great discussion, right? Topic of we joke about every gun ranking we see out there. And I'm one of those people who jokes about, I don't know even what it is, but the 6.5 Creedmoor is going to be on there somewhere. But,
I don't know if I'd bring my 6.5 for a moose.
And I will say, I do, if someone were to say, if you could recommend one caliber for moose hunting, I probably would just say the tried and true 30-06. It's an excellent cartridge, but something in that realm. You don't need to be that big. The big thing with moose is a good quality bullet and good shot placement is the key. And as big as they are, they can be surprisingly easy to take down. I've shot one a few years back in 2012 on a permit that I had won a permit in the lottery. And I shot a pretty nice bull in the mid 40s with a 7mm 08 and absolutely flattened it. So, and I'm a huge fan of that cartridge. I really am personally. If there's anyone out there, you're looking for a great cartridge that seems to kind of outkill its size. That's gentle on recoil and easy to shoot. You got someone who's recoil reverse or small framed. That's an excellent cartridge, and I would not hesitate to bring that up to Maine on a moose hunt. Would not hesitate.
Yeah, I would think that would be perfectly fit for a moose hunt. My brother had a Ruger 7mm mag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he shot a buck here in West Virginia, probably around 100 yards, maybe 120 yards.
Totally different gun.
It just obliterated it. I mean, it just gutted it.
Yeah, but that's a totally different gun. 7mm mag and a 7mm 08, Michael. Come on.
It is, yes, it is. But it's all in the same caliber range.
It's your same technical caliber, right?
Yeah, caliber range. Yeah, 7mm.
Yep. No, I've 7 rem mag, odd 6. I've shot them with a 375 H&H before. Just you know,
Oh, wow.
don't have too many excuses to take that big gun out hunting. So, when I was blessed to draw my second moose permit of my life, that's what I took hunting, and ended up shooting a bull at 35 yards, once behind the shoulder, and he went 3 feet, and that was it.
The 3 feet was probably just how far it fell.
Yeah.
But I would say that is far from necessary.
Oh yeah. I mean them, 7mm mag and the other one you're all talking about, it's, basically same takedown power pretty much.
Yeah, 308, odd 6, 708. You certainly could take one. Like I joked about the 6.5 Creedmoor. You could do it for sure. But bullet quality and shot placement are hands down. And you hear that about every game species, really. You make a well placed shot behind the shoulder, and we get a lot of questions about that shot placement on moose. We really do encourage people to just shoot them like a white-tailed deer behind the shoulder.
Oh yeah.
And this is a particular one. If you shoot them, be ready to shoot again, because they are big and they can go for a ways. And another thing that we always do in our client meetings when we get them to camp, particularly we tell people to shoot, and especially if you flatten one, like you drop it in its tracks, reload and be ready to shoot again. Moose are highly susceptible, from my observation, to getting stunned. We have stories of, people who have shot them in the antler and knocked them flat, and think they dropped the moose, and they're walking down, high-fiving, slapping, all man hugs or whatever. And the moose gets up and runs off. That's happened before. And actually,
I'm sure.
That'd be devastating.
Devastating, right? And
yeah.
Client I had this year, father-daughter combo from Alabama, wonderful people, awesome people, really connected over our faith and that whole thing. It was great. But she had that exact situation, and it was great because she really had paid attention in the hunter meeting. And so she shot this really beautiful 48-inch bull and absolutely dropped it in its tracks. I mean, it just vanished out of sight. And she reloaded, and she was like ready. I'm like, all right, we're going to slowly start walking up there. And sure enough, that moose stood up and looked back at us, and she was ready to go, and took care of business. And that first round, it would have been a fatal hit, but it had kind of nicked across the top of the spine. And that's why it was stunned. And it was down for probably 15 seconds. And then it stood right back up and stared at us broadside again. And she was ready to handle business. So that's a big tip I have, shooting a moose. If you drop one in its tracks, reload and sit right there waiting to be ready to go again. Because they're tough animals.
Now, what did she shoot that with?
A 308.
308. Wow.
Yep. 308.
That's a pretty nice sized gun to be shooting a moose with. But I mean, like you're saying, if you're going to shoot it with a 6.5 Creedmoor, you would definitely have to have that thing on the ready.
Yeah.
For the next shot. I mean, yes. And you're gonna have to track that thing, because it's. I mean, even if you make good shot placement, that thing's still going, as big as it is, it's still going to have some life left over to run and do whatever it wants to do.
Yeah, especially a big bull. Some of these moose, particularly real big bulls, they may field dress over 1,000 pounds. You think about that, so that's a big, strong animal. And so
you're talking about complete pass through from that bullet, and not a big entry or exit wound. So,
right. So, as I said, the big thing is, we always tell clients, because some people, I also think this is a key thing, and I would suggest this probably on most guided hunts, especially, here in Maine, even residents apply for years and years. They don't get drawn, and they're so excited. First thing they do, they run out, they buy a new rifle. And that's fine. But I always advise people, if you do that, buy it well in advance of the season and shoot it a lot, especially if it's a different action than what you're used to. But if you shot the same, Browning odd 6 that your granddaddy handed down to you when you were 16 your whole life, and that's, tried and true, bring that. So be good with your arm, know how to shoot it, confident and shoot it, and you'll do well.
Yeah, nice. That makes perfect sense, though. I mean, I've heard those stories. People go out and get brand new guns right before the season, and I don't know why I keep missing. Well, you didn't have time to play with it, practice with it. But one of the things we do like to do on our podcast is our salute to valor. So tonight we're going to salute James Simpson. He was born in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He passed away June of 2015. So this is a salute to his honor as well. Excuse me. He was a chief petty officer who was in the Vietnam campaign. He was awarded a Vietnam campaign medal. He was assigned to the USS CA-3 Grande from 1961 to 1964. He was stationed at Brooklyn, New York from 64 to 68. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba from 68 to 70. Philadelphia, PA from 70 to 72. He was on the USS Hamburg from 72 to 73. He was in Charleston, South Carolina from 73 to 75. On the USS Forrestal from 75 to 78. And he was back in Charleston from 78 till he got out in the 80s. He was awarded the Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Medal, Army Forces Expeditionary Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry Medal, and a Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal. He was in that war we talk about all the time that everybody hated, but he did what he had to do, and he come back alive to, sounds like, live a full life. So we want to salute you today, sir, and we appreciate your service.
Yes, thank you, James Simpson, for your service, sir, to our great country. So I want to go back and talk about those rifles that we were just talking about. I'm doing some searches here on the old Google, and Field and Stream had put out an article saying that the 6 best rifle cartridges for moose hunting. And Chris, you hit it dead on the head when you said it first. The 30-06 is right there at top. But then it goes down, and I didn't think that this would be one in there. It goes down, and the second one is the 4570 Government.
I could see that.
The scoped version. Is that scoped up version? That's what it's, or souped up version, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, it's saying souped up version. I don't know what that is.
So one thing, 4570 is a great gun. I have one. It's actually the Marlin 1895G, so the guide gun. I think what they're probably saying is a lot of 4570 factory ammunition is loaded pretty light because they need to be able to be shot from some of the old trapdoor rifles from way back in the day, versus modern rifles like the one I talked about that are much more, can take way more pressures and those types of things. So shooting like a heavy buffalo bore type ammo, that's a mean machine.
It's talking 420 grams or 420 grains plus and 1,600 feet per second. That's what you're wanting.
Yeah, that's.
They're talking about that Marlin Model 1895 lever action.
Yep. I have one of those actually. That's a great cartridge.
So then it goes in. Then it goes in to talk about the 6.5 Creedmoors, the number 3.
Yep.
Wow. See, I think if I went on a moose hunt, I think I would probably take the 35 Remington.
Wayland?
No, I got a 35 Remington.
Yeah, that's a great cartridge too. Yeah, that's a great cartridge.
I like it 10 times better than a 30-30.
Yeah. No, that's a great cartridge.
Well, so then number 4, it goes into a 338 Winchester Magnum. Then it goes into a 357 or 375 Ruger.
Yeah.
And then a 375 H&H is the number 6.
Yeah. I would say those last two, because I'm guessing that article is written moose hunting worldwide. So when you think like the Yukon, you're talking grizzly country.
Yeah.
So
they mentioned grizzlies.
Yeah, the 375 I actually purchased that, and I have not yet had the chance to, but the goal is to go hunt the Yukon at some point in my life. And so the idea of being able to carrying one gun that you can kind of handle your moose harvest and a potential grizzly situation, 375 H&H or 375 Ruger. I think it's interesting to have both of those cartridges listed as separate listings because those are ballistically nearly identical cartridges. You're talking case length and action length is your only difference, really. One's more modern, but those could be one and the same, in my opinion, of course. But I'm not surprised the 6.5 Creedmoor is on there. It's extremely popular. Bullet technology is way further along than it ever was when some of those other cartridges were first designed. So, but again, it all comes back to shot placement and quality ammunition.
Yeah, I've used a 30-06 since I was 12 years old. I started out using a 410 and then upgraded to Dad's 30-06, and that's what he bought me for my 16th birthday. I used his 30-06 all the way up to he got me mine for my birthday, but I have stuck with that round all my life. I mean, I love the 30-06.
My father-in-law always has recited the statement. I don't know who first said it, but it's be careful of the guy who has one gun because he probably knows how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So, talking about the Yukon and moose and bear and everything up there, what all do you guys guide on? Do you guys do bear hunts, and do you guys guide fishing trips and all that as well?
Yeah, so up in Eagle Lake, the operation in Eagle Lake, OMM Outfitters, I think I mentioned earlier, Nate Terrio, our owner, launched it in 2003 and, really has built this really incredible operation and this great team that I'm so fortunate to be a part of. And bear hunting, moose hunting is no question, I think, our greatest passion. That's our focus. That's what we talk about year round. But we also have a very robust black bear hunt up in northern Maine as well. And so the big density of the season happens August, September, October. Also some grouse hunting as well. Ruffed grouse hunting, partridge in northern Maine is, frankly, especially these past few years, is kind of insane how many birds there are. And that is an absolute blast. And I can tell you that's the hardcore time for us. We typically do a team training in early August, get our whole team together, organized, and scouting starts from there, really hardcore, building up to that first September moose hunt. Typically it's the last week of September, and then the second week of October is when the two bull hunts fall. And then later in October, there's actually cow hunts. So we have some cow moose hunts as well. We do a few cow hunts, but the big concentration and focus is always the bull hunt for September and October. And
now,
yeah,
is that their mating season in that time frame usually?
Yeah. So typically the rut will be that last week of September, first week of October. So that September season tends to fall on it. And the October hunt tends to be a little bit post rut. Certainly you have everything's on a bell scale, but yeah, your tactics change, those types of things. But I would say one of the things too, that time of year in northern Maine with the foliage is absolutely stunning. And I think it's one of the reasons the guides, we come back and we look forward to doing it every year, because you're out there, you're hunting these magnificent animals, you're having these incredible encounters with them, especially when they're vocalizing, but it's just gorgeous. Walking through, I call it the Cathedral of Maine. If you're walking through a stand of young hardwood, you got the crown of gold leaves, up above you, and you're calling, you've got a bull moose grunting. It's quintessential Maine. So almost postcard worthy. That's
one of our biggest beauties here in West Virginia too, is the autumn time and the changing of the colors of the trees and things like that. Man, it's crazy. We were up there in February, so I mean we was dealing with a pretty good bit of snow when we was on our way home.
Yeah.
we had, I think we only had like we didn't have no snow the day before, and we wake up the next morning to head home and we got like 12 inches on the ground.
It can change with, the weather in Maine. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes, yeah, we have this beautiful fall, but it's like this gorgeous time right before. I think I was telling y'all, I'll check right now. It's a cozy 13 degrees right now at my house here in Herman, Maine. So
Man,
you can keep that. Yep, you can
see,
have it.
I like cold weather. I like it, but I used to like working in it, but I don't particularly like working in it that much anymore. But I like it when it's cold.
You have to celebrate it. You have to choose joy in the winter. Heard a saying years ago, if you don't find joy in the snow, you have less joy in your life and still the same amount of snow to shovel. So
That's pretty good.
You might as well enjoy it.
Yeah, Eric always sends me pictures,
makes
and
sense.
I talk about the snow down here, and I'm like, man, I can't wait for the snow to happen. And he's like, we've had it for too long. He was like, take it away from us.
Yeah, it's it does bring with it some unique opportunities, and actually the company also operates. We operate out of the Eagle Lake Inn up in Eagle Lake, Maine, as well, and that operation actually has a lot of snowmobilers that stay there, and we actually have an ice shack. We do some stuff in the winter through OMM, have a smelt shack for rent, and do some ice fish guiding as well. Can take you out, your family out. They'll get you on the ice, set your traps, cook you a meal, that type of thing. So, ice fishing, man, that's a blast right there.
That's something I want to do.
Yeah. That's a blast right
Yeah,
there.
I haven't ice fished for years. Now, do you guys do any like this? I know up in like Michigan and Wisconsin, they do a lot of the spear fishing in the ice, where they cut the big old holes out of the ice and put bait fish down there and let the big pikes and muskie and all that come through, and then they spear them.
We
You guys have any of that going on up here?
We haven't done any of that, but I'm making a note of that on my notepad right now because we might have something to try.
There you go.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy up there while I was working in Illinois that he goes up just across the border. It's like 3-hour drive, and every year they just cut big old like 4x12 squares out of the ice, set a tent over top of it, and then they just wait. And they're in like 4 foot of water, if even that deep. He said they just take a 5 or 6 prong spears and jab them in there when they get a pike or something come through.
That sounds awesome. All right, I got something new to try.
Taking notes. All right, so let's go back to we talked a little bit about it, but let's go back to the Moose Hunt podcast. So you guys started right before us. We started in September of last year. You guys started in August.
Yep.
The first, how long of a trial period did you all go through before you all put out your first episode? And what's the growing pains of it since you all have been doing it?
Oh, that's a great question. So we had actually started recording some episodes in June at the Maine Moose Festival. The state does like an actual like festival wherever they do the drawing of the names. They actually draw them live. And so we actually had like a booth there and, just interacting with the public. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we love it. We're there really just to interact with the public, share stories. I'm going to boast for a minute here. I was pretty proud. My 2 girls, 6 and 8 years old, went up together to do the youth moose calling competition. And they called together, like dual called. One was a cow, one was a bull, and they won the show.
Awesome.
So I was pretty proud of that. But we
cool.
recorded our first episode in June and then recorded a few more I think I had 6 in the can before we rolled out. I'd gotten some tips from some people to kind of get a half dozen or so recorded before you start going, because it just wasn't sure about getting people together, and actually initially invested in, like a podcast recorder, all the cabled mics. And so we'd always be together just creating audio content.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Which was great. And it worked well from, August, September, October, because the team was all together. But then the end of moose season comes, and, we all live hours apart. And so the ability to get together to do that was a challenge. And so, kind of like this, software that allows you to do this at distance with people, was kind of an evolution we quickly needed to make, because, or I would have been, driving 2 to 3 hours every time we needed to record an episode. And, it's just, it's tough to do that. So I'd say that was a big thing. But also I kind of found it interesting what some people really like to hear. We did a few podcasts that were very like structured and, do this and do this, trying to do some things that were like almost instructional, and those would get some listens and whatever. But then we'd have some where I felt like we were just shooting the breeze, and people love it.
Oh yeah.
and so we kind of learned to, just, really, I think people like the authenticity, and so we just get on there, share your moose hunting stories. And it's very interesting because each episode and each team member that we have is unique. My regular job is, I'm a director of admissions at a flagship university, state university. We have people who do the outdoor guiding deal full time. We have a EMT. We have a retired wildlife biologist. We have a carpenter. We have a guy who works out on like major ships out off the Alaska coast. Like, it's really cool. The like,
wow, that's pretty diverse.
Like the diversity of the team. And so as we get different members on, and we've been able to cover some pretty cool topics, because, we have a great relationship with a member of our team who's a taxidermist. So he can really tell you, this is how you need to handle your cape. Trust me, and it's been a lot of fun. We also have really been able to collect, we have a gentleman, his name's Guy Randlett, who is a major mentor. He's a much older gentleman, and he's actually battling a few health issues right now. So we welcome prayers for our moose brother, Guy Randlett, for sure, for his health and wellness. But he really was a major influence, particularly for Nathan, when he started the company. Nate would tell you, he goes, he and Kenny, we were a couple of young punks, and this guy kind of helped refer us a client, and this relationship built and built and built. And so now he's a mentor of ours, and we were able to kind of sit down and capture a podcast and hear his background, because he'd been guiding and doing this moose hunt deal since it started in like 80.
Oh, wow.
Most of us on the team, we weren't even born yet, and he was already in the moose woods. And so, hearing his knowledge and his history and the ability to, I think what I love about the podcasting is capturing cultural and vocal history. That podcast, particularly with Guy Randlett, meant a lot to us. I know it meant a lot, particularly to Nathan and Kenny, but it's one of those things that we have now forever. And
how long ago was it that you all done that one?
That one, I think we did I think we released it in early September. So,
okay.
Yeah, we recorded that at training in August, and I think I released that one in early September.
I think I've listened to that one. You mentioning his name. I think
Yeah.
I've listened to that one because I started from the beginning of your all stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
he's an incredible man, godly man, has forgot more about moose hunting than I'll probably ever know. And so we're pulling for him. He was out guiding in the woods this year with us, actually, both seasons. And so he gets up to camp and we keep him young. So we got to get through this winter. It's got to warm up and he'll be good to go.
yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about these podcasts is you get to hear, like you're saying, the different cultures and the history from everybody in their areas and what they've been through and how their hunting journeys have evolved over the years and, you know, different things like that. I mean, I just love it. It's like being in deer camp 24/7.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
it. And, I think we always try to take, the wins from times. And, this pandemic we went through, that's crazy as it was, this ability to do like what we're doing right now, being, hundreds of miles apart, you can sit down and have these conversations almost as if you're sitting around a table at a little log cabin in a remote pond in northern Maine. It's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, we had some struggles when we first started. You know, we'd done our research and things like that, and we started with a whole week of series. We did recordings for the whole week.
Yeah.
So we would record an episode, air it the very next day, record another episode, air it the very next day. We'd done that for 7 days straight, and it was the week before our archery season here in West Virginia. So we put in some work and we put in some time into recording those episodes, and it was all based on, archery and the deer hunting with your bow and arrow and traditional and things like that. And man, it flowed so well together.
Yeah.
And then, we started out, like you're saying, with a bunch of things that were scripted and things like that. And, we still like to get talking points down, and that gives us a basis of where we're going to go, and then we just lead into different things from that. But, it's awesome that we can get together and do this,
Yeah. And I love I feel like it's connected a network of outdoor enthusiasts, folks in the South,
Definitely.
and me up here in the great white North right now.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you're 18 hours away from us.
Right.
That's crazy.
At least, yeah.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when we left, we were going to, let's see here. I believe it was, I can't remember exactly where it was in Maine, but I don't know if you know Kurt Westcott.
No, I don't.
So I think we were probably
he
still
threw a
an
lie
hour
at
away
us.
from Eric
Okay.
when we were with Kurt.
Yep.
But it took us, when we left here in Charleston, West Virginia, it took us 18 and a half hours to reach his house. And that was nonstop driving. We didn't stop to eat. We got food and ate on the way.
Yeah.
And
Gas once or twice and go.
Yeah, gas twice and maybe use the bathroom. I even think John Fowler pissed in a bottle on the way up. He had to go so bad. Oh man, but we had a blast while we was up there. I mean, if there's another place in the U.S. that I could live that would be like my home state of West Virginia, it would be Maine. And I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah, it's an awesome state. And there are regions in Maine. It's even interesting if you come to Maine, even accents actually change. If you were to really get here, the down east accent, I'm from Western Maine. So sometimes people think I'm from like Mass or from Boston. Occasionally, especially when I get home, my accent.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. My accent thickens up pretty good when I get back around, my family back home. You go up to the county and, right on that Canadian line. And so you get a lot of French speaking. And so you get that has its unique accent. It's
That's what I was going to say. Eric, he can speak French, and you can catch that, that different tone in his voice and the accent. It's crazy when he gets really into talking.
Right. I remember the first time I went to Northern Maine, like some of those border towns, they'll have fuel there in liter and gallon. And I remember the first time I went to Northern Maine, I was like, Dad, I can't believe the gas is like 37 cents or whatever it was. And he's like, yep, for a liter of it.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's not cheap.
No, it wasn't, especially then. But no, it's an awesome place. I'd say I love the culture, the community. I can say, like my neighbors are my friends. And that's one thing I love kind of about the state is it just kind of, you really can make friends everywhere you go. People are super friendly. I think part of it is like there's a great community spirit in the state of Maine because winter can be hard. So we kind of gotta get through it together. So it lends itself to a wonderful, wonderful place to live, raise a family. So
sorry, I was sending Dan a message there on our message board. I was telling him to go in there and talk to you about your 17th episode coming up. So if you can give us a little sneak peek about what's getting ready to drop.
Yes, actually, yeah. So we, one of the most recent episodes we posted was interesting. I host the podcast, and the Nathan and Kenny flipped the script and actually kind of grilled me and kind of forced the audience to get to know me. So that's a recent one we posted. But the one I just edited that we're going to be dropping is actually, it's a discussion, myself and our team member Dana Valou and Ken Mayo, team members on there. And we actually get into and discuss a couple topics around wildlife biology. Dana is a wildlife biologist by training, alumni of the wildlife ecology program here at UMaine, and very knowledgeable, particularly around insects and parasites and those types of things. And one of the challenges with moose in a lot of regions is the winter tick and their impact on moose health, moose population densities. And so the winter tick is something that we have in Maine, and the biologists monitor. And it's so we kind of actually get into a discussion about winter tick, the life cycle of the tick, why they're different, how they're different from what people typically pull off themselves or off their dog. It's a unique tick that really prefers to target moose. It's like target host.
Oh, really?
We share a lot about that. And then we actually get into some specific stories about Kenny, Dana, and I end with the 3 craziest things we've ever seen a moose do in our lives. And I can tell you right now, the story I share is one that people will have a hard time believing, but it's 100% truth. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll have to definitely tune into
good.
that episode for sure.
Yeah. Look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, those 3 stories are interesting, but particularly mine, the craziest thing I've seen a moose do. You'll want to hear it.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this evening. Dan, you got anything else?
No, I can't think of nothing. And I don't think we hit much on any kind of much of the bird hunting. You guys do a lot of duck and waterfowl like that up there as well? Or?
We do. There's a fair amount of like goose hunting. Do some goose hunting, and also there's a lot of farmland up in northern Maine. So a fair amount of that. And then the grouse hunting particularly is exciting.
Yeah, I know you hit on the grouse hunting. I got a sea duck on my wall.
Yeah.
From Maine.
Do you? Nice.
Yeah, he stole it from some poor blind kid.
Yeah. Now you need the rough grouse, and you need a 50-inch Eastern Canadian moose harvested in northern Maine.
Oh, man, I would love to have a moose.
That's what
a moose or an elk. That's like one of my dream hunts.
Yeah.
We've been trying to talk to Eric into sending us some, but I ain't got nothing in the mail yet. I mean, you got anything?
He's got 3,000 pounds of moose meat up there.
Oh my God! Yes.
I know you'd think a man could spare an ounce.
I'm surprised I can't see it piled up at his house from mine. So.
No, he said he had like 3 freezers full.
Yeah,
that's awesome though. Hey, congrats to him.
That, that doesn't come around. That just doesn't happen, frankly. I mean, to have 3 family members get drawn in life is awesome.
Oh, I know. Yeah. That was one of the big reasons why we had him on the podcast, and, just to tell that story that he got to spend with his family. I mean, that's just amazing, man.
Now, with them being drawn like that, how long is he going to have to wait? He told us, but I can't remember. So he's going to have to keep that moose meat because he ain't going to get a chance for a couple of years.
All right. You have a 3-year mandatory wait. I will tell you, and I share this in one of the podcasts, the guys, when they interviewed me, I have nothing to complain about for moose permits. For some reason, there are families in Maine that seem to get drawn, and I have been blessed to have been from one of those families. I actually am a part of a family that, no joke, was able to pull at least one family moose permit per year, every year from 2006 until this past year, with the exception of 1 year.
Dang.
And some years had 2. I don't know, luck of the draw, I guess, but particularly crazy. My old man and I combined for 4 in 7 years.
Man. Now, do you all have preference points as well?
So now what you get is, you get, for every year you don't draw, you gain like another point for the following year. And there is a multiplier effect based on how much time that happens. So you build like 1 additional chance for years 1 through 5, and then 3 for years 6 through 10. And then 5 for years 11 through 15. And I think you get 10 points a year for every year beyond that you apply and don't get drawn.
Oh, wow.
And another thing, the tip for people, if you have been drawn, you can actually apply, and pay your application fee and get your year of applying, knowing you won't get drawn. So when you are eligible, you have 4 years worth of chances in the lottery.
So you have more than points.
Yes, you get your points. But those of us who take moose hunting seriously, the second my kids were born, because you can't moose hunt until you're 10, they are in the moose lottery application every year. So my 8-year-old has 8 years worth of chances stacked up. My 6-year-old has 6 years. So when they turn 10 years old, they'll have a decade worth of chances racked up in the moose application. So.
Wow, that's awesome.
Pro tip out there for kids. Pay the $15, get their chances.
So they see that as a young child that cannot hunt at that certain time frame, but so they won't even, they'll kind of overlook that draw for that then, or?
Right, that's exactly right. There's no minimum age on hunting in Maine with the exception of moose hunting. You have to be 10 years old to moose hunt.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So nice. They wouldn't even, what if your son or daughter was to get pulled? I mean, do they know not to pull them?
Yeah, they won't even be in the draw.
I got you.
When you apply, it actually flags as in it. It says this person is not going to meet the minimum age requirement, therefore cannot be in the draw. And you select, yes, I know, I'm just buying the bonus point.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's what, that's what Tom was telling us about out west, in Wyoming. They have some similar kind of thing to where you can get preference points. And, just because you buy 1 year and you're not able to go on a hunt that year doesn't mean that you're not going to get it the next year. You build up those preference points, and you can, I think he said it was unlimited, Dan wasn't on there, but I'm pretty sure he said it was unlimited on the amount of preference points that you can build up.
Wow. No kidding. Yeah.
See, I think that's how it works for an out-of-stater in Maine too, right? Like I think Eric was saying something, we can buy an abundance.
Yeah, so non-residents can buy like piles of chances when you apply. Non-residents, however, are in the running for, I think, no more than 10% of the permits in any annual draw. So that's the give and take. The Mainers don't get to buy all these extra chances, but we are competing for 90% of the tags. So that's kind of how that works.
Got you. Well, we're going to hit on one more thing before we get off. Hit on growing up in the little town of Dixfield, Maine. We talked about that before before the podcast, and you said it was basically one lane in, one lane out, huh?
Yeah, back before the fame and Ferraris, right? No, I grew up in the small town of Dixfield, Maine. It's a paper mill town. Everyone kind of worked in the paper mill in Rumford or the sawmill in Dixfield, or worked in a shop that supported employees in those. My folks owned a pizza joint right there in town, and ran that until like my senior year of high school. And I grew up. I was really blessed to grow up really close to family. My next door neighbor was my uncle and my cousins. His next door neighbor was my grandparents. My grandparents' next door neighbor was my grandfather's sister. And then one of her kids lived across the street. And it was one big family farm originally. That kind of people had grown up on. And so I grew up kind of in just a free, like, American dream town. We rode four-wheelers, we hunted, we went fishing. It was safe. It was one of those deals of my mom would throw me outside in the morning with my bike, and I'll see you at dark for dinner. And, it was awesome. And so kind of grew up and went to college at the University of Maine, and kind of ended up finding a career there while I was a student. And I met my wife, who's from East Northport, Long Island, New York. So when I talk about growing up on different planets, as you said, I grew up in a town. I think I graduated high school. I think I had like 70 kids in my senior class.
Oh my goodness.
Total. And my wife's from Long Island, a whole different world. But yeah, I was fortunate. I grew up in a family that everyone hunted. Everyone. I mean, my mother has a 48.5-inch bull moose on the wall at my folks' house. Wow. So I grew up just surrounded by people and passionate about the outdoors. And it's kind of one of the greatest gifts I've had. And it's just been such a part of my life ever since. I'm so fortunate and excited to share those same passions with my kids, and also share these passions with folks like y'all and on our podcast, and share these stories out there for everyone to hopefully connect with, get something out of it, and maybe come up on a new adventure in northern Maine.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, that hits the nail on the head. That's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, is to keep the hunting heritage and the traditions in the hunting and the outdoor industry alive. Yeah. We got to be honest with ourselves. It's a dying sport, and we got to do everything we can to try to keep it alive, because the days that you were just speaking of is not seen by very many people these days. No, it's a bummer. It really is. And it's funny. Well, my brother and I, both grew up, same way, love the outdoors, passionate about it. And my brother is actually a pharmacist now. And I remember when he was in pharmacy school, he went to pharmacy school. He had met friends from all over the country, and he took them we took them ice fishing one time. This group of people, they'd never really done anything, and they're like, they really think my brother's an outdoorsman, don't get me wrong, but they thought he was like Daniel Boone. You know what I mean? And there's so much we can teach, and I think we do need to lean into. I've found that post-COVID, especially here in Maine, there's a lot of people interested in the outdoors. And it might not be hunting, it might be camping, backpacking, fly fishing, whatever. But I think we have an opportunity to bring more people in. And I think sharing these stories through these types of formats is critical to the exposure, and to help recruit more people into our traditions. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, Chris, I think that's going to do it for this evening. We appreciate you coming on, and we thank you for your time, sir.
Yes, thank you, guys. It's been great being with y'all, and
it was definitely a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, be well, be safe, and God bless you guys.
Well, before we get off, just go ahead and give people some information about OMM Outfitters World Class Adventures and the Moose Hunt podcast. So where they can find the podcast and how they can schedule a hunted guy or a guided hunt with you guys.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about moose hunting, bear hunting, coming up on an adventure in northern Maine, you can visit ommoutfitters.com. All of our information, pricing, availability. You can see photos of the Eagle Lake sporting camps, the traditions we have up there. And if you're interested in tuning into the podcast, the title of the podcast is The Moose Hunt Podcast. Pretty straightforward. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where all major podcasts are available. And just look for the Euro moose rack, the Euro moose rack with a little microphone. You'll know you're in the right place.
Yep, that's it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this evening. So, Chris, again, thank you for your time, and we appreciate you coming on. It was a pleasure having you, and hope you have a good evening there.
Thanks, guys. Same to you.
All right, guys. So be sure to check us out on Facebook, On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls. You can check us out on Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. Anywhere you get your podcast, we're there. So give us a like and a subscribe, and thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great night. This episode of On the Limb with Nature's Voice Game Calls is brought to you by Top Down Construction, a local construction company located in Hurricane, West Virginia. A veteran-owned and operated construction company ready to tackle any project. With over 25 years of experience in the industry, they offer a wealth of knowledge from design to completion. Contact them today at 304-415-2203 and let them make your dream a reality. You can also check them out on their Facebook page or call them today at 304-415-2203.